All right, I think we'll get started. Thank you again for joining me tonight. I hope that us slowing down and finding some pause and stillness serves you in some capacity today. If you didn't have a chance, feel free to maybe grab a blanket or a couch cushion. We might use a few blocks as well. If you've got books nearby, those can substitute in a lovely way. And then once you've gathered what you would like, you're welcome to use any of these to support your seat. And we'll just take a moment to settle. Your seat might look like mine. You might decide to kneel. But wherever you are, close the eyes. You can place your hands with intention. So maybe you'd prefer to keep the energy contained with the palms down. You can also flip them up or bring them to the center of your lap. If you haven't yet, bring your attention to your breath. Taking these first few moments to notice, what's going on right now in your body. And if you're just arriving in this space, just finding a comfortable seat and connecting with your breath. Just observing what's happening in your shoulders, your upper back. And you might also take a moment to swallow. Just relax a little bit through the mouth, letting the cheeks become a bit heavy. On your next exhale, letting your hands come into a prayer at the center of the chest or one on top of another at the heart. You might lift the heart a little bit into those hands if you're feeling a bit tired from your day. Occasionally in our practice, we're encouraged to create an intention, or what's sometimes called a sankalpa in Sanskrit, the language of yoga, so a resolve of some kind. And your resolve tonight might just be to spend time with yourself in stillness, to process, to digest. But if there is something specific for you, feel free to repeat a word in your mind 3 times, or imagine a state of being. And then feel free to release your hands and blink open your eyes. If you happen to be sitting on something, we'll just shift that out of the way. And our first shape tonight will actually just be a reclined butterfly. So we'll be lying down on the back, and you might want either 2 cushions or maybe 2 blocks, even a bolster underneath your knees. We just want to come down. You can ground your feet and just ease your way to the earth. And we'll have the soles of the feet together and those knees open to the sides. You may choose to let this be just your body and gravity doing the work here. But if you feel a little bit of extra tugging on those inner thighs, then that would be a good opportunity to be like, I think I'll take my blanket or my cushion underneath my knees and give myself a bit of earth support. Once you land here, you get to choose where the arms live. So you might have hands on belly, that hara center below the navel. You can also choose to open up a little bit through the upper body if you want to take on a cactus form, or hold your elbows overhead if that feels spacious. As you settle into this shape, you could explore some samavriti, some equal breathing if you choose. So allowing the inhale to be maybe 4 or 5 seconds long. And then following suit with the exhale, letting it be about 4 or 5 seconds long as well. Just an optional anchor. Tonight, I'll be speaking a little bit to the 4 mind changings, which is something that my teacher, Sarah Powers, introduced to me. And you could say that these are 4 concepts or ideas that might change your mind or your perspective about something. And the first one that you're invited to contemplate is the preciousness of this human life that we have. And even the privilege, perhaps, of having the time and the means to practice tonight. But just simply, we are alive. We are here in this body right now. Taking some time to let that settle into your bones for about maybe 5 to 10 more breaths here. At the end of your next exhale, you might choose to guide your hands down beside the body and let your hands help you as you bring your knees back in towards each other. From there, you're welcome just to instinctually maybe lift your hips and ground your pelvis, or if you wanted to hug your knees in, just anything that's going to act as a helpful counterpose after that openness. If you were wanting to move or windshield wiper those legs, that's also great. The next thing that we'll be doing, you actually have the option. We'll be moving towards a sleeping swan shape, aka pigeon. If you know knees are sensitive, you could stay rooted right here and bring your, let's say, left ankle over your right thigh. This could be a shape if you'd like to stay closer to the earth tonight, and you can always guide that right knee in and hold on behind the thigh if you'd like to stay rooted. Otherwise, what we'll do is we'll transition to one side to come up to sit. And then coming to hands and knees. And you might even choose to move a little bit here. If you're wanting just a brief cat and cow, or just even a gentle downward facing dog, that could be something you explore. And then if you're working with this version of sleeping swan, you'll bring the left shin forward. And we'll extend that right leg back behind us. And you can, of course, have some propping either under the right knee, or if you want something under your left hip, you can just ease that beneath you. And then perhaps you come to the forearms or all the way down towards the earth. Mm-hmm. And always with our yin yoga practice, just moving towards something that feels sustainable, where you can allow the breath to move in a fairly smooth, steady fashion. So if this is bringing you more stress than what you arrived with, then maybe just back off a little bit or try a different variation, add more support. And these yin shapes are a really great opportunity for us to experience the second mind changing. So first we have this concept that this human life we're embodying now is really quite special and precious. And then the second is that, well, we're going to die, that we're going to lose this precious life at some point, and that everything is always changing, everything is impermanent. So as you sit in this sleeping swan, perhaps just contemplating that whatever you're experiencing here, sensation-wise, will inevitably change. But with that in mind, inviting yourself to stay present with what's going on, as opposed to thinking like, oh, well, this will be over soon. Feeling into the body. You could once more check in with the upper back, with the face and mouth to see if there's somewhere you can relax. And we'll find just about 5 more breaths on this side. When you have your 5 breaths, when you're ready to shift out, again, if you're on your back body in that eye of the needle or threading the needle, you can, of course, just release and maybe extend both legs long. But if you're working in this version, maybe you just ease your way up and you could just slowly transition to either a child's pose. You might have the urge to just lie right on the front of your body, open up through the hips. So whatever feels instinctual, intuitive for you, just give yourself maybe a symmetrical, a centered resting place, just to feel what that was all about. You can lie on your back, anything goes. And then considering the second side. So maybe the right ankle comes onto your left thigh if you're in the back body, or we can come up and then start to bring the right shin forward, or your opposite shin. I begin with the left side tonight, which is not always our habit as yogis. So then maybe now that right shin comes forward, and that knee can be in line with your hip or a little bit more to the right side. You can always shift your hips back a little bit, adding any support beneath, and then starting that journey forward and down. And if you've got cushions, you can bring them underneath your chest or a block under your forehead. And as you're here, you may choose to just come back to that idea of that second mind changing, of we are of the nature to die. And what does that mean? What becomes important when we consider our mortality? You can also notice where your body might tense or hold on when I speak about that. Just noticing kind of where our fight or flight response kicks in for us. You can invite the breath right down to your belly. And then we'll explore again about 5 more breaths here. And then when, again, you've had your 5, no rush, but when you're ready to transition, just being gentle with yourself as you, again, maybe just extend a leg or ease your way back to a child's pose or downward dog, or maybe, again, you lie on your belly. And just letting this resting place be highly personal. You might appreciate the blood flow, the pulsation, the freshening, the freshness that can come after we've stayed in the shape for so long. And then when you're ready from here, we'll bring the hands alongside the ribs and we'll come up to hands and knees. And we'll just take a moment, if it's available, I'll have my knees together and I'll just come back and sit on my heels. Yeah. If this isn't accessible for your knees and ankles, feel free to separate your feet and sit up on something. If that's also like just not a thing for your lower body tonight, feel free to stand up on your knees and add some support beneath. We'll just work with our upper body for a moment or two. And so in this shape, just letting the right elbow come under the left, just allowing ourselves to hug the shoulders, or if you choose, moving into Garudasana arms, into those eagle arms, if that's available. Yeah. And you can lift or lower those elbows or nod the chin in. We won't be here too long, but just finding a place where you can breathe into your back, breathe into what you feel. The gift of Garuda, the eagle, is that it has such great perspective. It can see the big picture. Things become clear. Just take 3 more breaths. Feel free on the exhale to let the air out the mouth with any sigh, any sound. Gently release those arms. You can just let them hang by your sides, or you can shake them out a little bit. We'll do the second side with our arms, and you have the option to stay exactly as you are, to come up onto the knees now, or to flip the toes under and hang out there. So it may be possible just to flip those little toes under. I have my big toes fairly close together, and I have really small toes, so sometimes I curl them under with my fingers. And then test the waters. You may decide like right here is enough for my arches, but it might be possible just to come up a little bit so that we could explore the second side of the arms. So see how you feel. And then maybe left elbow comes underneath. Or you work in those eagle arms here. Very different experience for the feet. And then you kind of get to decide if your feet are really chatting, if you're like, oh, I'd rather experience my feet and maybe explore these arms in the break, or the opposite. You might be like, oh, I really want these arms, but the feet are not my thing. So. And then wherever you are, let's just take those 3 final breaths. I'm going to release my arms a little early. And release out the mouth. If those toes are tucked under, just ease your way forward and slowly let that go. You can just wiggle the toes or circle the ankles. The feet might feel a bit crunchy. Some people like to make a little song with their feet. So you can do that, or you can just rest for a moment. Lovely. And then we'll give our feet a bit of a break and just come forward onto the belly once more for Sphinx pose. Now from here, you can have your elbows under your shoulders or have them a little bit in front of your shoulder. Just watch that you're not living here. And then the hands can stay palms down, or you can also bring your hands together in a little prayer if that feels helpful. You can have your feet hip distance or even a little bit wider, just seeing what feels good for your low back. And then we're rooting into those forearms, maybe finding length at the back of the neck. If it's challenging to keep the head up, you could bring a block under your forehead. As time goes on, you may find that you just need to ground a little bit more into those forearms to maintain the structure of the pose, the Sphinx. And then you're welcome to contemplate the third mind changing here, which you could say is to do with karma or karmic consequence. So just simply that our behavior, what we choose to do or not do, has an effect on us, on our experience of the world. So you might just consider consistent actions that you take or that you don't take. You may not, in this lifetime, know what the consequences or the reaction is in the world. But just considering how you take action. That could also be in reference to the previous two mind changings. You're welcome to stay exactly as you are. If you're wanting a deeper back bend, you can turn this into seal pose by rooting into the palms and pressing into the hands so that the arms become straight. I like to have my hands wider than my mat, and I turn the fingertips out a little bit. So as opposed to parallel hands, fingers facing forward, I just turn them out slightly. Ideally, we're not totally squeezing through the glutes. Natural to do that to feel like we're protected in the low back, but just seeing if you could soften there. And if this is way too much, come back to Sphinx or just come right onto the belly in crocodile pose, just lying flat against the earth. Just knowing that we have one more minute in whichever you choose to stay in. Knowing that your choice will affect you in some way. When you've had a few more breaths in this pose, let yourself transition to the ground. Just observing what's happening in your low back, what that was. And then from here, we'll come up to hands and knees and just take a moment in the child's pose, letting the spine move in the opposite direction. Knees can be close or really quite wide in this child's pose. It'll be more of a transition. But just easing your seat back, letting the forehead find the earth. Or if it doesn't make it there, the hands can move into little fists, or you can have a block beneath your forehead. Starting to move up out of this child's pose and just having a seat. We'll extend our legs out in front in a nice open V. This is a great place to find your blanket or a cushion and just sit on the very edge of it. In a moment, you may want other props nearby as well. So if you want to take the time to grab them, like if you have a cushion or a couple of blocks, you might want those. And the first thing we're actually going to do is just activate our legs. So flex your feet for a moment, fingertips behind you, just sitting up a little bit taller. And then this will be a subtle but interesting shape where we bring our right hand to our left thigh. And then our left hand can just kind of live behind us. Or for some bodies, it'll feel good to wrap that left hand around and you can kind of sneak it into that right hip crease, or you can hold your pants if you want, or your shirt. But if this is a bit much for the shoulder, just letting that left hand rest behind you. You can soften your feet now, but we want to keep a little bit of, again, this structure, sitting fairly tall, but just sitting with this twist. This is sort of the shape itself. I'm sorry if you had dinner before you arrived. You can always unwind a little bit. Because this might initially seem more active in nature, when we twist, at least that's often where my mind goes, is like, I need to keep twisting. But just let yourself settle as much as you can. Could you stay fairly upright, but relax the belly a little bit? You can explore where the gaze is. You can just check in with that left wrist, that back wrist, just to, I don't know what your hand's doing, I can't see, but you know, you can always change the angle of it or make a little fist or just shift the hand further back so there's not too much pressure on that wrist. Taking about 5 more steady breaths on this side of the twist. when you've had those 5 breaths, just trying to unwind. You might de-rotate a little bit to the other side, but just coming through the center. You can just sit and feel what that was. You're also welcome to, take a little bit of movement if you wanted to bring those knees in and, let them windshield wiper a little bit side to side, giving the backs of the knees a break. When you come back to the center, again, maybe just take a moment to bring some yang energy and flex the feet. You're also welcome just to interlace the fingers and lift the palms up towards the sky, growing a little bit narrow at the waist. And then just releasing those arms, you can soften the feet, and we'll bring that right hand to sort of the crease of the left thigh maybe. And then again, right hand can just come behind, or if you've got long arms, I envy you. Or you could just sneak that right hand to live in your other hip crease, or hold your pants or your shirt. It can be a nice kind of internal rotation for the arm. Or maybe you just rest it behind you. Doing your best to relax the lower body once you're here. I find this one a strangely potent shape. As you're here, you might contemplate the 4th mind changing, which just speaks to the suffering that we often experience, and how much of our suffering comes from what's sort of sometimes called samsaras, or these kind of repetitive grooves or ruts, you could say, that we find ourselves in. Sometimes because of just unconscious habits, unconscious actions. And so this mind changing encourages us to recognize our boundless nature, recognize our ability to be present to this moment, to live with awareness. So we can recognize when we're getting back into one of those lessons we've learned 75 times before. Oh, right, this, okay. I can see clearly. It also speaks to our ability to find content within, without, sort of regardless of external circumstance. So being present to that content, that sweetness that is available to us. Just being sure to invite the breath in here. Just taking a few more conscious breaths here. And then just allow yourself to ease out of that twist. Again, maybe you take a moment to de-rotate to the other side, or you can just kind of sit at center. There's also the option to guide those legs in for a moment, because we will return to this shape for our next pose. But do what you need to in between. And then for our next shape, we'll move into Dragonfly, which is just us coming through the center. For some of us, it might just be, I'm going to keep my spine nice and long, and I won't necessarily maybe even drop the head, but just, take a journey forward and see what that feels like for those adductors or for the spine. If you do have stuff nearby, it can be really nice to maybe, if you've got a bolster, it can live here. You can get a bunch of couch cushions and all of your books and support your head here. Normal for there to be some tugging behind the knee, at the back of the knee, so we can bring some cushioning there. We can also just, bend the knees and fold here. Some people might even ground the feet, but you can explore this angle with your legs to see if you get more forward momentum. As you're here, just reviewing these 4 mind changings. And the first is that life is precious. An affirmation here could be, I am extremely fortunate to have the privilege and the leisure to learn and to practice. This can be a really nice mind changing to contemplate as soon as you wake up, like, oh, I'm awake again. This is kind of exciting. I get another go at this life thing. And then the second piece is that we know that everything is impermanent. Everyone who is born will die. So our death is certain. The time is unknown, but knowing this, what is most important? The third piece is sometimes called karmic consequences. This idea that the results of both our virtuous and harmful actions, the results are inevitable. And that our actions are powerful and important, that they do have an effect. And the fourth piece asks us to wake up to a degree, to do our best to live with awareness with intention. To tap into our wisdom and our compassion, our capacity for both of those things. Almost done. Take 3 more breaths into the whole body. And then make your way slowly back up. And you can just kind of sit and lean back on your hands or just kind of feel the effects of that hold. And you can also just, really fairly soon bring those knees up and in. You might want to hug them in. We'll be coming onto our backs again, but I will just get you to scope out an area where you can maybe do legs up the wall or like legs up a couch or legs up a chair. We'll do a reclined twist, but then we'll move into sort of an inversion of sorts. So yeah, just having a sense of in your space, even if you just pile a bunch of cushions up, and we can bring our legs onto that. But for now, just ease your way down onto the back of your body. Letting the spine adjust. Allowing the arms to open out to the sides, and then yogi's choice for the legs. You can keep them as they are, side by side. If you wanted to add a little bit more compression and twist, you can bring right knee on top of left. Let's go the other way, because, yogis habit. Let's be aware. So let's twist with left knee on top, or let our knees fall to the right side to begin with. So whichever version of a twist you choose, just shift your hips a little bit towards the left and let your knees come up and over to the right side. You can, of course, have padding between your shins or under your knees. And this arm can stay straight out to the side, or you might just let that arm slide up alongside the head. You can keep your gaze to the sky, or you're welcome to turn your head in one direction or the other, just to see how that affects your upper back and neck. If it helps you focus, you can let your right hand, it might also be out, but you could bring it to your low belly and feel the breath there. For the next few breaths, just spend a little bit of extra time in that space between the inhale and the exhale. Just hovering there before you move into the out breath. And then you could start to just transition back towards the center. Releasing the legs if you need, again, if you want to extend them between sides, kind of whatever you'd like to do. Sorry, my blocks collapsed. And then finding the second side. So again, maybe the knees are just living side by side. Maybe you now have right ankle over, or right knee over left knee, I should say, hugging. Twisted roots, this is sometimes called. And then we'll shift our hips a little bit to the right and let the knees come down towards the left side, maybe towards the floor or maybe onto some kind of support. And that right arm can live straight out. You can bring it up and overhead or whatever feels good. Left hand can live at the belly or it can be out to the side as well. A lot of the shapes we've explored tonight are really close relatives to restorative shapes. And some of our asanas have been sort of like super yin tonight. You can just observe how that has affected you. You're welcome to gently lift the corners of your mouth in this shape. Might sound a little facetious, but just notice the effect that it can have, just a slight gentle smile. And again, give yourself a few breaths where you could live in the same place, that place between inhale and exhale. You can also spend a little bit of time just at the bottom of your exhale to see how that feels. And then start to bring yourself back to the middle. You can unravel your legs. Taking a moment to, again, extend out. You could hug in. You can move a little bit, whatever feels right for you. And then we'll be setting up for legs up the wall or legs up your couch or bed. And if you don't have the space for that, know that you could just move right into Shavasana or anything else that's going to feel really restful. So for legs up the wall, again, you can just have your body and the space. If you've got a blanket or a bolster, you might want to have that under your low back. So again, you can place a folded blanket, maybe right up against the wall, or if you had a bolster, you could bring that up against the baseboards. And then I like to sit either on or on my cushion if I've got it, but just with one hip up against the wall or close to it. And as best you can, ease your way. I'll see that was less graceful. Ease your way down onto the back and let those legs come up. You might have to wiggle around a little bit. And the legs can be parallel here, maybe right together. If you like to have a strap around your shins for containment, take the time to do that for yourself. And the arms can be wherever they feel at ease for you, beside you, hands on belly, overhead in that sort of cactus shape. You certainly don't need to be pressed right up against the wall, especially if the hamstrings are tight. And of course, you may be working on a bed or a chair where the knees are going to be at more of a 90-degree angle perhaps, and those legs will be soft. So moving into your version of feet above the heart. Just really allowing yourself to receive this rest and this time. I know for myself, even though I've been practicing for a long time, it can sometimes feel very luxurious to spend, even a full 5 or 8 or 10 minutes in a pose. And if you need a support, that could be your breath. If you just return to that equal breathing, letting inhale and exhale be the same length. If at any point your feet get a little tingly, if your legs are all the way up the wall, know that you can take a break in a butterfly, the soles of the feet together, or almost like a cross-legged position at the wall, and then return to that parallel leg experience. And start now to deepen the breath in your belly. If you're in a place where you're like, I'm going to stay here for another 20 minutes, please do that. Otherwise, I will invite you just to start to wake up, maybe toes, bend the knees into the chest if you're at the wall. Just take the next minute to roll to one side, if you've decided to come up at all. You can stay on your side for a little bit. Let the feeling return to the toes. And then eventually come up to a comfortable seat. You're welcome to lean your back against the wall or sit on any support. Just observing how you're feeling now compared to when you maybe first sat down. Just drinking that in. You're welcome to place your hands on your body if it feels good to place hands on heart or one on your belly. If you like a classic prayer at the heart, that's great too. And coming back to these 4 mind changings, I would invite you as you move through the rest of your week just to explore, maybe waking up and just reminding yourself that you're alive, that you've got this body today to work with. And then reminding ourselves that you might take a day to just contemplate, if this was my last day, would that change how I move through the world? I know logistics get tricky, but giving ourselves time to sit with what is important because we have an end date. Doing our best to perhaps act with intention, or just knowing that our actions have consequences, not necessarily positive or negative, that there is weight, perhaps, or impact. Our actions impact the world, impact others. And then this 4th piece of just reminding ourselves as much as we can to live with awareness, to remind ourselves of our natural radiance, our natural strength and capacity to hold any suffering that arises, which it inevitably will, our capacity to perhaps hold space for others as they live with their suffering. And that we all have an inner ground. We all have this place that we can anchor into, tap into, despite the external world. We'll now find just the sound of Om 1 time, followed by 3 Shantis, the Sanskrit word for peace or ease. You're welcome to use your voice here or listen to the sounds. Inhaling. Om. Shanti. 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 Om, peace, peace, peace. thank you all for your presence tonight. I hope this was a helpful offering. And yeah, feel free to pop in the next couple of Thursdays in June if you'd like.